I didn't forge bonds with my professors that I was closest with through office hours. I did it primarily through kind of less formal channels, and I think one of the benefits was in the social anthropology department, they are about connecting with people, and so with some of my professors, they were like, look, like if you want to talk about it, let's get lunch. And so I distinctly remember going with one of my professors was of Korean descent. She was like, there's the best bibimbap place, like I'm taking you there, like we're going to Boston, and like that's what we're gonna do. And that was, I still remember that. Yeah, it was fantastic, and it was definitely like connecting to a person, and we talked about her kids and our kind of intellectual interests and stuff like that. So that professor was someone that I was really close with, and she was someone that I had a very small class with, so
that helps a lot.
Yeah, so it was a kind of tutorial, so there were like 10 people, so we all got to know each other really well, we all got to know the professor really well, and the other professor that I was close with was also from a tutorial, and I guess my tendency was in a big lecture to, I would always introduce myself to the professor, but I didn't really get close to anybody in the kind of large lecture format. If anyone, I would get close to my section leader because of whatever questions that I had, and they're the person that you interface with on a more intellectual level anyway. So that was my experience.
I never missed a class. No, I'm just kidding. I missed my share. I would say that in terms of getting to know the professors, what Julia said is completely right. There's a bunch of smaller classes which are geared towards kind of fostering those strong relationships, and so similarly, I had a bunch of smaller tutorials with professors. In the economics department, that's a little bit less the case. I think it's probably changed since I graduated, but there was a sophomore tutorial that was taught by a professor rather than a TF, a full professor. But what I would say is that in general, in the economics department, the relationships, I formed 3 or 4 really close relationships with professors, and all those classes were on the larger lecture side because they were popular professors. And so in that case, there's class participation, and so by asking interesting questions, they'll probably notice you. But it's really, you kind of have to make the effort to go to an office hours with them to get to know them better, and to have them know you a little bit better.
I think regardless, you always have to take
sure.
initiative. I mean, these people are super intellectual, they have other stuff going on, it's a research university, they're not going to like wait around for you to come approach them. And I had a lot of professors that said like, I had office hours, nobody came, so I'm not going to have them anymore. Like they want you to come, but they're not going to make it like, they're not going to hand it out to you. So I think there's that point, which is pretty definitive. Otherwise, I think it's very major based. As Jonathan mentioned, economics, those tend to be larger classes because it's a larger major, because some of the subject matter doesn't need to be kind of teased out on a line-by-line basis like, literature or something like that. You can think about it theoretically independently rather than as a kind of collaborative group effort. Whereas a lot of other majors, like for social anthro, the best classes I took were the ones that were highly collaborative and debate-based.
Yeah.
So one was on kind of globalization and development and thinking about, from perspectives of anthropology, development is destroying cultures or is it creating cultures? And those were some really great fundamental questions from which to have these expansive debates and actually form a relationship, again, not only with your peers but also with the professor, because they got to know your thought process and everything like that. So I think it's basically concentration based. A lot of the kind of professor relationships, the grad student teaching, what kind of percentage that comprises. Would you add anything?
And then, it's definitely concentration based, and then even within concentration, there's variability there.
Yeah.
So a bunch of big economics classes, and then a fair amount of smaller ones.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I had a lot of friends who they did psychology, and some of them were very theoretical, and others of them did lab work, and they had some lab, the lab professor that they were very close to, and that would advise them, things like that. So it's very much whatever your particular interest is. But I also had tons of friends who didn't connect with professors, and that was fine. It's whatever you want to get out of it.